Hello and welcome to our program. I'm your host, Katie Jones, and today we're going to be making DIY clay earrings. And I am pumped about this one. It's something that I wanted to do for months, and now I finally did it, and I'm in love with some of the things that I made. So I'm going to show you, I have some on today, a little cheetah print, super fun. And then I also made some fun little samples. So that one has I don't know, 7 pieces put together. No, 6. There you go. And then here's some fun little ones. They're simple, but I'll show you. I did a fun little technique with that one. And then these are fabulous. I don't know if you can see them, but you can see them in a minute. And then I made some little chain link ones. And they were fun. Oh, there we go. And then, ooh, so fun, so fancy. I saw these on Pinterest and fell in love with them. So those are just a few of the ones that I've made. And I'm going to walk you through the process. I'm not going to show you how to make all of them today. Definitely look it up if you're interested in some other designs. I have a whole Pinterest board dedicated to clay earrings, and then you can even separate it out. But the possibilities are endless. They're so fun, pretty cheap. You can give them as gifts, and it's a great little project to work on. So I'm going to get started and tell you what you need to make this happen. So you need polymer clay, and there are a lot of different kinds, but I have the Sculpey 3. There's 2, 1s, whatever. But definitely look at them. But polymer clay is definitely what I recommend. You need a cookie sheet, and then you need wax paper or aluminum foil. I'm using wax paper today. That's basically a surface to work on so it doesn't get stuck to your table. You can also use a mat, a silicone mat or a baking mat that people use for fondant. So, highly recommend that. And then I recommend a rolling pin, and then clay tools, shape cutters, jump rings, and then earring hardware. So there's posts or hooks. And then pliers are super important. Super glue, or today I'm going to be using the E6000, something that's really strong and for multi-purpose use. And then obviously you need an oven to bake it. You need saran wrap, and I'll explain more about that later. And then scotch tape or small plastic bags are basically for you to store them. And I just find it helpful to have that with my stuff so that once I'm done, I can clean up pretty easily. And then a spatula and a plate or a tray just to kind of move them around and help you navigate and do everything with them. So now I'm going to get started. So I'm just going to move some of my stuff out of the way. And today I want to make, they're kind of like a rainbow shape. They're super popular. You'll see it once I get started. So I'm going to take my clay, and I need a piece of wax paper to work on. Just a small, sorry, that was kind of loud. Just a small piece of wax paper will do. And then I have my polymer clay. It really doesn't take much to do it. So I've used this kind for many, many things. They make it in 4 little sections, and I would say everything you make, you probably need less than a section to do. So easy. Okay. So I'm just going to take and kind of get it warm in my hands and kind of smush it together. Just kind of get it ready. And there are different ways that you can do this. So I'm going to show you. You definitely don't have to purchase one of these, but since I do a lot of crafting, I purchased a clay machine that will roll it out. I figured I could keep it forever. It's easy to clean and maintain. I'll show you the simple way, and then I'll show you how to use that. So, I'm happy with it. I'm just going to push it down on my wax paper. This is just an acrylic rolling pen. Highly recommend it. It's cheap. Use a coupon. Get it from a craft store. Super great. I'm just going to start by rolling it out. I want to make sure it looks like I have enough clay. I didn't quite use the whole section. I maybe needed to, so I might get a little bit more, but we'll see. Yeah, I might get a little bit more because based on, I'm going to make like a rainbow and then I'm going to make little hearts to connect it. So I think I do need a tiny bit more. So I'm just going to, and basically just roll it out. You want it to be flat and even across. And you want it to be pretty thin. Forgive me, I don't have an exact measurement, but I would say a couple millimeters. It really doesn't have to be super thick. You don't want it to be too fragile, but clay earrings by nature are fragile. You do have to be careful with them. It's not hard like metal, so just take care of them. And if you're gonna sell them, I know a lot of people that are selling them on Instagram or Etsy, they have a policy because they do tend to crack. I mean, they definitely ship them and try and keep them all in one piece, but I know that they've received complaints or people asking for refunds or whatever. So that's just a pro tip. Okay, so this is great and I can roll it out, but I'm going to show you also how to use a clay roller. So I'm just going to set my clay to the side, and I purchased this. It was like $40-some, I think, online, and I've been able to use it a lot so far. Like I said, I'm going to have it forever. I can use it with my kids, pass it on. I don't have kids currently, but in the future. Ideally, you can get it out of the box, but not today. Okay, there we go. So, I get it out of the box. Again, ideally. Okay, there we go. Oop. So, I'm going to take it out. And brought the box with me because I'm going to put my handle on. And something very important, so in the directions it says to make sure you run like a cloth through initially in case there are any like metal shavings or anything from the manufacturer. But if you're doing like multiple colors of clay, you need to clean it in between, because otherwise if there's clay stuck in the machine, it'll get on your next color and you won't be very pleased with the results. So I take a wipe, or you can use a cloth that's thin enough, and I set it on the tightest setting. So you just take the little knob and turn it. I set it on the tightest setting, and then I just put the cloth in, have it ready. I'm gonna put my little handle on. Sometimes you have to shimmy it. And because the handle is longer than the machine, I take the box and I put it on the box. And, or sometimes you can like set it on the edge of the table and just roll it that way. This looks a little bit fancier, so I'm gonna do it that way. And I'm just gonna run the cloth through just to make sure it's super clean before I get started. I'm even gonna like fold it in half to make it a little bit thicker. Sometimes it doesn't catch it, so you push it down a little bit. And just make sure it's super clean. Boop. Okay, great. So just make sure it's not like super wet when you go to run your clay through. Always give it a little wipe down. And I'm gonna move for this machine. I like 2 or 3 for my thickness. I'm not even sure if it has the exact like thickness anywhere, but when I run it through, that's what I'm happy with. So it's pretty dry. You can always run like a dry paper towel if you use a wet cloth to do. But I'm pretty happy with that. So you always want to make sure you kind of flatten this out a little bit, either by hand or with a clay roller. You don't want to try and put like a big hunk of clay through there, but this is good. All right, and then I think I'm ready. So I'm just gonna take and run it through there. Oh, it's so pretty. I'm gonna run it through one more time. You can even take like 2 colors and put them together and run it through, and it'll kind of give that gradient look if you run it like multiple times. Or sometimes you can start out thicker and then go thinner to make it like mush together or blend together. But I think that's great. That'll do what I want it to do. So I'm just gonna move my roller to the side, or I guess it's like a press. Either way, I'm gonna move it to the side. Okay, that's great. So I'm still gonna take my piece of wax paper, and for today, I think I am gonna make the rainbow shape. So I have some clay tools here, and I have a wide variety of tools. And so I'm going to kind of combine forces, I think. Well, I do want the heart to be my topper. I don't even know if that's an official term, but that's what I call it. My topper. Okay. And maybe I'll use this one. Do I like that? Not really. Yeah, okay. We'll go with that. And maybe this one. Okay. I don't know why, but those shapes don't look exactly right, but that's okay. For today's purposes, they work. Okay. And for this, that rainbow shape looks good. So I'm just going to take and put it down and kind of like lightly press it. Now this is going to be a different kind of technique, but I'll blend them together and show you what I do for the regular ones. So I can kind of see my line, and then I'm going to figure out where I want the center of my little rainbow to be. I want it to be like there. Whoopsie. Line it up, press it in. Alright, cool. So that's still stuck. So I have my top piece and I have my little clay tool. It kind of looks like an X-Acto knife. It's not as sharp, but that's the idea behind it. And I'm just gonna kind of fake it till I make it. So my arch is great, and I'm just gonna follow my line down. And this one is definitely like a more complicated design, but I figured it was easier to show you guys complicated and then I'll show you easy. So for one earring, that's pretty good. And then you can see I'm just gonna like cut it across. This one is not as even as I would hope, but that's okay. So I can always put it back together, roll it through again, make another one. It's very forgiving. As long as you don't mix colors together. That's when it gets a little complicated. But you can see I've got my basic rainbow shape, and now I can take and kind of press it again. Boop. That'll take my little center out of it, and that'll be a good little rainbow shape. So my edges are not as crisp as I would like, so I just take and rub along them. Now you want to make sure you're not pressing too hard with either of your hands. You don't want to get your fingerprints in there too deep, and then you also want to make sure you're just kind of smoothing it out. You're not changing or altering the shape. You're just smoothing it off. And if there's like a really big difference, you can always cut it and then smooth it again. But I don't want you guys to be bored. So I'm happy with that. So that's going to be like the bottom of my earring. And then here's my pro tip, because I had to Google it because I was getting a little frustrated. So sometimes when you cut it, you saw before that my center of it got stuck in there. If I wanted to use that as my real earring, it would become a problem if I was trying to press it out. So simple. I saw this online. You just take a piece of saran wrap or plastic wrap and take a piece of it. Oopsie. Okay, that's good enough. You just need a small piece. And I'm going to make my little topper. So I'm going to flatten it down on there. You do want it to be pretty flat, because otherwise it won't cut exactly right. So flat. And then I want my heart to be a topper. So I'm just going to take and lay it down. I'm going to press. And then I'm going to take my saran wrap off. And you can see that I can peel it off, and my shape is perfect. And I kind of like pick up my wax paper and just lightly peel it off. And voila, it looks perfect. Now I will tell you, if you're using the wax paper or the saran wrap to do it, it will kind of give it a rounded edge, which I think can look nice in a lot of situations. It becomes a little difficult if your piece has a lot of three-dimensional features, so I would caution you about using it then. But otherwise, I think it kind of finishes it off and makes it look very nice and crisp and clean. So that's my pro tip. And then, so I would just continue making the shapes that I like. Do whatever makes your heart happy. You can combine colors to make different colored clay. To make the ones that I have on the cheetah print, I cut my basic shape. And then I took little smidgets off of the clay. So I started with like my beige color, and I took my clay, and you really just need like a really tiny little piece. And then you would put it down on your flat piece of clay and just roll it in to kind of adhere them together. And kind of do that with your black as well. You can do it at the same time. And then that will kind of adhere all of the colors together. And then I cut them out. So what I like to do when I'm trying to do special shapes, and I can even show you like with my half circle one, I just made one big circle, cut it in half. But I don't cut the shape first because I'm going to roll it out. So I take and get all of my design in there, and then I cut it. But I want to have a general idea of where I'm going. So I just get my general shape, boop, boop, make it super thin. That's thicker than it needs to be, but you get the point. And I'm going to take my circle. Oops. And I just kind of like lightly press it down so I can see where I'm going. Because you don't want to get it like too far out. Some people, you know, they get crazy with it. So then I would just take and put it down, roll it again, and then take your saran wrap and just take your shapes and cut them out. And then voila, it's perfect. And then you need to put your holes in there. Friends, they need to be bigger than you would think probably. Because I know that I made some, they were not as big as they needed to be. And I got really frustrated when I was trying to put them together. Some of them cracked a little bit, even though I was super careful. So, always make them bigger than you think they need to be. So I just took the tip of one of my little clay tools and figure out where you want it to be connected. Press it down and then kind of shimmy it around. And again, it looks bigger, but it's always better to be able to get your jump ring through than to not be able to get it through. So you put that there, and then if I'm going to connect it to my heart at the bottom, I'm just going to take and do the same thing. So you want to make sure you know how you're connecting them before you bake them. And so you want to make sure you've allotted for all of your hardware and your needs. So like with some of these, I put holes through and I put a jump ring in. Some of them, I didn't want to do that. So I just made the hole and connected them, and then I put the little stud on the back, and it's going to just be a post earring. Not a stud, it's a post. But anyway, so make sure you allot for all of that. And like with these, I just made seven different rectangles and put the holes through it so I could connect a little bar. I cannot talk today. Okay, so that's great. And there's so many ways to attach them. I use jump rings. I ordered just a big thing of them online. And they vary in size from like 10 millimeters or 12 millimeters. And then they go down in size. So I think like 4 is the smallest. But I typically go somewhere in between like the 7, 8, maybe 6 range, sometimes 10 depending on the thickness. So I would definitely recommend that millimeter size, between like 6 and 10-ish. kind of just depending on the size of your clay, the size of your holes, how you're connecting them, what your design is. That's kind of like the main bit that I found. That's like my sweet spot. And then I got some little bars, so you can like put them on, and then you cut it and turn the ends, and then you can connect them. And then you also want to think about, if you're putting a post on there, you just want to make sure that your clay is big enough to cover up the post. So they make different size circles for the backs of them. So just keep that in mind when you're designing it and then buying your hardware, that you want to be able to put it all together once you're done. And then they also make these little like fish hook ones that I think are fabulous. So let's talk about a little bit more about the clay. They make so many different types of clay now. Didn't even know some of them existed. They make the regular like Sculpey 2, 3. There's different kinds. But make sure it's oven baked polymer clay. And then they also make, this one's so fun, transparent clay. So once you're done, it's translucent. So you take and put your design together, and then it's actually clear once you do it. So think about your hardware when you're putting it all together. But it's transparent, so super fun. And then a couple other things that I learned when I was making them is that you can use like gold flakes, or, I don't know, I was going to show you how to do it, but I just crushed it. And then there's also powders that you can use. So this is just like pearl powder. I don't know. It's just pearl powder. And it comes in a million different colors. So you can mix it in with your clay. A lot of people use it for clay. They use it for resin. They use it for something else I can't think of. But there's so many different uses. So definitely look into that if you're looking for the pearlized look. And I know like this one, I hand painted it on there and then you bake it in. It's fantastic. But with the gold flakes, you simply just make your design, and then I just take and like pinch off a little bit, get it on my little fingertip, and then just press it down into the clay. And then once you bake it, it's baked in there and it looks fantastic. So that's that. There are so many different shapes. There's so many different designs. You can really just put them together, look up different things. Like this one, I cut out a bunch of different like long ovals and then line them up on top of a circle, cut the circle out, and it cut the edges and then made the little top piece. And it looks fantastic. I'm in love with those. So many different shapes. Just kind of explore, figure out what makes your heart happy. There are different ways to make the different designs. Like I said, you can make one circle, chop it in half, and have the two. Or like for triangles, if you don't have a triangle, take a square, cut it in half. Fantastic. Wonderful. And then you always want to look at your clay packaging. But once I was done with the project and I was ready to fire it, I had the holes and everything, lay it out on a cookie sheet. Preheat your oven. Most of them cook at 275. So make sure you set it to 275. And then the directions are a little complicated based on your thickness. I had a whole cookie sheet full of earrings before I decided to bake them, but it just kind of varies. But the directions are to bake them for 30 minutes per 1/4 inch of thickness. So it's not the size, but it's the thickness of the clay. And I know that I had a whole cookie sheet full and I baked them for 30 minutes. Something else that I Googled during the process, because I didn't know, how do you know when clay earrings are done baking? Well, what I found is that if you pick it up and you can still press your fingernail in and see the imprint, it's not quite done. You should be able to see like a little bit, but it should not really go into the clay like it does when it's wet and when you're working with it. So definitely bake it for the amount of time that you need so that it will last longer. I know it doesn't feel, when you take it out, it's not hard like you would expect. It still feels pretty light. It feels different, but I know you want to make sure that it's nice and done and ready to put together and wear. So I would just recommend trying the thumbnail trick, seeing if you can, push your fingernail in and see if it will go in or not, and then you will know that it's done. And I just use I have a Cricut, so I just use my little Cricut spatula. You can use another spatula or something to get them off of the tray. You want to be careful with them, like I said, and work to put them together. So once you've baked them, I'm going to give you a few more tips. And when you're making them, the cool thing about polymer clay, you don't have to cook them right away. You can work on them for an entire week or a couple weeks if you want, and then you can bake them. But here's a pro tip. If you have dogs or kids or dust or anything, make sure you cover your cookie sheet while it's waiting to be baked, because dog hair or dust or anything can fall onto your clay, and then you have to take it out before you bake it, and it's just a mess. So make sure you cover it while you're still working. So that's great. So let's pretend you've baked it, you've taken it out, it passed the test, it's good to go. So ideally, you're going to make your holes big enough, right? Right. If not, you can always take a tool and kind of gently wiggle it a little bit. You don't want to be too hard because you might crack your clay. But just gently wiggle it. Boop, boop. And you can make the holes a little bit bigger that way. Sometimes it's really not possible, but sometimes miracles do happen, right? Okay. So then, with your jump rings, pull out a jump ring that's the size that you would like to use. I bought these online. They were cheap, and they came really fast. And I like it because there's a wide array of sizes. So, I have my jump ring, and I have my tools. And now you're just going to take, and I have one side, and I have the other side. And with jump rings, you don't pull them apart like that. You don't pull them apart like that. You pull them side to side. With some of them, they are kind of big, but still, go side to side because it's easier to put them back together and keep the same structure of the jump ring. So important. So now I'm just going to take and feed it through the hole of my earring. I don't know if that's going to work. Sometimes you have to do quite a bit of maneuvering. Again, you don't want to force it too much because the clay is fragile, obviously. Oh my goodness, y'all. I'm going to just take and make sure. Sometimes it helps if you try and press it in the front and the back to make sure it can go through. So you just press it through. Yay. Okay. So that part's through. And now I'm just going to take my little piece that I'm connecting. You have to be pretty careful with this. Boop. And then you just take, and ideally you can get it to go in. I think I needed a bigger jump ring. It's okay. Oh, there we go. Or more patience. Either one. And with this, I am going to use both. Just hold the edge of it. Whoopsie. Just hold the edge of it and bring them together. I definitely need a bigger jump ring. That's okay. And I try and close them in the back if possible. With this one, I got a little too excited. But if you can put it through and have the back of the jump ring be in the back, that would look a lot better. And just move them together. So make sure they can connect, and then it'll hang beautifully. And then you just put the rest of your little pieces on. And then with this one, I decided I wanted a post backing. So I would just take and take the top off my E6000. I'm not going to do it right now. But then take your little post, put some glue on the back of it, put it where you want it to be, and make sure they're even for both of your earrings. And then I just let it dry overnight, and then they're ready to wear the next day. And then make sure if you're giving it as a present or something that you give them the backings too, because that's super important. The only other thing that I want to share with you guys today is if you have, let's say you have one of like the fish hook kind, sometimes when you make it, it wants to hang a certain way, but because you put a jump ring through and then you're connecting it, sometimes it's not facing the right way. You don't have to add a whole other jump ring for that though. You can just take and twist it and then connect it to the jump ring that way, and then it'll be correct. So I have that. I shared that with you all. And then the only other last thing is if you use the post, kind of put them on, you can cut it to size and then twist it in to give it the same look as the other side. So that's all I have for you today. I hope you enjoy making some clay earrings, and if you do, please share them, post pictures, and tell your friends to follow us on Facebook or like us and follow us on Instagram or Twitter, and subscribe to our channel for more programs like this. Have a great day.